I know you speak to a lot of companies and a lot of big companies that may, have a lot of employees. I deal with a lot of small businesses that may have maybe four employees, making 500, a couple million, not too high end, but decent sized businesses that are they're okay.
Yeah, that's
And,
it's well on its way.
the thing that I find, it's so hard to train or to, devote that time to that employee to want to have to replace that employee.
Yeah.
So it's more like once that, it's almost like a marriage,
It is.
and
Choose well.
which yeah, you do have to choose well.
You really have to hire well.
When you have that employee that is not doing the best for the customer, but the employer, they feel that it's a good representation. As a consultant, how do you approach that? How would you approach something where the employer, your clients, want what's going on? They trust their employees so much because it's almost like a marriage that they have to. They feel like they spent so much time devoting to that employee that to have to change would be like overhaul.
Right.
But-
So there's a couple things that are all part of your question. You can't assume that you as a business leader are totally mature when you first start your business in terms of your own leadership.
Right.
And so sometimes you make mistakes in hiring. Maybe because you're hiring for skills instead of attitude.
Or maybe family members.
Yeah. Sometimes you get saddled with family members, and sometimes you have to say, what's best for the long term of my business?
Right.
So there's a short term, and maybe keeping this employee for the short term because they're solving a need and they're filling a body space that I need filled is tempting. But what is the best for the long term of the business? Maybe to let this person go so that you can get a person with a better attitude so that your training actually can count for something. Because if you
Right.
train somebody you're going to let go, I mean, what's the point?
Well, I
And same
touched
with
on
the
family member.
members,
That's
yeah.
basically what it was. It's a situation where it's a family member
Yeah.
that's hired another family member, and how do they separate, or how do they make that transition? Doing that, they started off okay, but they could be doing much better if they did make that transition and a change. But I think it's so difficult.
Such a loaded question.
It's so
Because these
difficult.
family members, they come into relationships with a lot of baggage from the past because they know each other as young children or as
Right.
parent and child.
Right.
And so they've got to work at separating family issues from professional issues.
Right, this is true.
And then it's almost impossible to do, but as much as possible.
It's a process that
And
needs to be
then-
done.
Sometimes the family member may not be the right fit. They fill the need at the moment, but it's not the right fit for the long term. And they need to have a really transparent discussion, sometimes facilitated by a third party who's more objective, to understand how the family member who is hired is actually not fulfilling their potential inside the organization and would maybe do much better outside the organization in a
Right.
job where they could actually bloom.
Exactly, and what they did in the beginning was good to get to the business to where it is now, but to get to the next level, it's going to require some
Yeah.
additional, consideration. Someone totally different, perhaps, or
Different personality, different experience
exactly.
level.
Yeah, sometimes it's just hard to, for for a client that is so attached to their employees because of that relationship.
Or they're fearful that the other
yeah.
person might not find another job.
Yeah.
Or,
It's a lot of things, so
There's-
many things. This is in particular with a restaurant that I was advising, and just to let them know that there may need to be an adjustment of who we consider managers or things of that nature. But it's like
and
you said.
sometimes there are pay things, you pay this person because they're family, pay them a little bit more than somebody else in the same position,
Right.
and now it's not fair, and other employees are finding out that
Yeah.
it's not fair. Or maybe you're paying them less because they came in on a shoestring,
Right.
and you don't really want to raise their rate because they're not contributing enough,
Right.
and yet
Again, and the business is just struggling because of this, or
Yeah.
stifling, or something is not happening. But there's something that needs to happen. Something needs to happen.
Right.